Welcome, welcome, welcome to Gifts of the Sacred Feminine, the Empath's Journey. I'm Sharon Carne of Sound Wellness, and I'm here with Carmen Hansen of Carmens, and we are all about uh, exploring ways to support those who are highly sensitive, finding ways to use also this incredible gift that you've been given. So, our topic for today is, did you really say that? Which is all about trusting your intuition. So Carmen and I are going to share a kind of our journeys of this inside voice and how to figure out where it came from, and are you really saying, is that really true? So we'll be playing with that and having some fun with that. And our intention for our show generally, as I mentioned, was to support you, the highly sensitive, in being able to manage and use this incredible gift. And as we get started here, I would like to invite Carmen to create sacred space.
Well, thank you for that invitation and welcome everyone to our show, our teachings, and our invitation to embrace that highly sensitive nature that sometimes gets in the way, or it feels like it gets in the way. So I'm going to open space, sacred space, by toning ohms. Please join me if you feel led, and I'm going to ring the bowl. Breathe it in right to your heart. And revel in the peace that comes.
I love that beautiful old bowl, Carmen. I always find every time introduce our shows with our ohms, it just feels so centering.
I agree. It's such a gift. And it fell into my lap because of intuition.
Good point. Oh gosh. As we get started with our topic today, I also wanted to thank Ruth Anderson for connecting with us and asking us to bring this show to the EWN network, and particularly to Enlightened Living. So I want to welcome all of those who are joining. And we look forward to watching your comments as we share our stories too. And I wanted to spend a moment here to introduce Carmen, because I've known Carmen for many years, and she is amazing, as you will find out if you come back to our shows. She's an animal communicator, an animal specialist in that way, and I learned so much from Carmen every time we chat and we're together. She's also a sound wellness practitioner. She's a shamanic elder and a metaphysical teacher, focusing on bringing love and light into our world. And her website link is in the description to the post, so I do encourage you to go and check it out. You won't regret it. Carmen is really amazing person and a wonderful, incredible practitioner.
Thank you, Sharon. Takes one to know one, you know. I am so blessed to work with Sharon, who is the founder of the Sound Wellness Institute, and she's a best-selling author. She is an international speaker, a gifted musician, a recording artist, which I have a couple of those, a master sound healer, and a publisher. And I'm so pleased to call her my friend. And we support each other in very interesting ways, and we have different points of view. and we just listen to each other, take on what fits, and discard what doesn't.
Absolutely, Carmen, and I love that there is always and it feels so free to be able to share who you are with someone, without having to be concerned about what you're saying or how it will be received. It's just there. And it's accepted. And as you say, we we have differing points of view sometimes, and sometimes we match our point of view, and sometimes we learn from each other. And just being in that space is a blessing. That space of friendship is a blessing.
It is.
Always. Yeah.
We have
Hmm.
the dolphins playing together,
Yeah.
and sometimes sometimes they butt into each other and go, "Oh, that didn't feel so good." But being bio-individual consciousnesses, we each have our own frequencies. So what suits me doesn't always fit with everybody else, or might fit with somebody else, but not everybody.
Yeah, totally. And we all have that permission to be in that space, don't we? Yeah. And that actually is pretty important to those who are highly sensitive. So, and speaking of highly sensitive, when Carmen and I were talking about the theme for this show, I sat down and started to write some things down, and I want to read them to you because sometimes when you sit down to write something, things just flow, and there's no way I could say this again. So I want to read it to you as far as some thoughts about being highly sensitive, and then I'll share with you a bit of my journey of going through discovering being highly sensitive and listening to that intuitive voice in particular, and learning how to trust it, because that's a unique journey for each person. And so we're so excited about this topic. It'll be so cool to share all these things. So this is what came out the other day as I was writing. One of the notable characteristics of the highly sensitive person is that they can also be highly intuitive. Learning to understand and trust the voice of intuition doesn't come naturally to many people. We live in a culture that values the logical and safe, especially safe, left side of the brain. So many people end up ignoring or resisting the more intuitive side of the brain, or that experience of that side of the brain. The truth is that the outside of the box, right side of your brain, is connected to much more than that electrical flow within the brain tissue that works on the left side. It's connected to your heart. It's connected to your soul. It's connected to the bigger picture. Another truth that is emerging from the scientific world is that your brain and nervous system functions as a receiver and a transmitter. And that begs the question, what are we transmitting? And what are we receiving? That's a huge question to ask these days. Now, I believe that in order to be whole, we need to value and learn how to use our whole brain and the gifts and challenges that each side of the brain brings to us.
Mhm.
Did you want to comment on that first, Carmen, before we go into our journeys?
Well, well said, Sharon. Very well said. The challenge, as you pointed out, was trusting. And we've made it a point of staying safe in many regards. And as children, we are more open to that intuitive. We have invisible friends, or we hear voices in the trees, and our elders um, in this particular culture, our elders just go, "Oh, well, that's silly." Yes, pat you on the head and say, "Oh, yeah, that's cute. Now run along, dear, because they've been also trained in that left brain thinking. So the challenge I would submit is to reawaken that beautiful gift that we're born with, and that we really connect with our hearts, our hearts, our hearts too. The more we connect to our hearts, the more we live in that field of love. And I'm not suggesting just fly around through your heart and walk off cliffs in trust. The balance, it's almost like balancing sacred feminine and sacred masculine. It's the balance of the logical, this is keeping me safe, and the intuitive trust to just go, everything is always working out for me, even when it doesn't feel like it's working out for me. So.
Thanks, Carmen. Yeah, I really agree with what you're saying. And beautiful, and especially what you're saying about the heart, because that is one place where more and more people are finding themselves, and the heart really runs the show. It runs the whole chakra system. It sends more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. As a receiver and transmitter here, it can give the heart information about what steps are needed to move the heart and soul forward. I'm learning. I'm learning. Mhm. So I'd love to share a little bit about this journey with the intuitive voice. And and these are kind of 5 steps that I wrote down for me that describe a bit of how I went from completely ignoring or not even knowing I had an intuition and couldn't even name it, and then moving to, okay, this intuitive voice is pretty darn strong and I kind of like it. So it always works out. So, and that first step for me was actually acknowledging that I have an intuition, that I have an intuitive side. For me, probably in my 30s, it took a while, slow learner sometimes, 30s and 40s is as you're going through building a career, having a family, and all of the daily life things that creates in your life. Sometimes that intuitive voice gets becomes so quiet that you can't even hear it. It's always there. But for me, it wasn't even being listened to. And then sometimes there are certain things that happen. For me, it was like a 2x4 over the head, where the intuitive voice actually yelled at me. And that's a whole other story. But that yelling at me was something that woke me up in an instant. It's like, where did that voice come from? It was in my brain. I knew it wasn't in my train of thoughts at the moment, because at that moment, that voice yelled at me. I was in a downward cycle of worrisome and fearful thoughts. And so that intuitive voice had to yell to get my attention. And when those moments happen, as this moment did for me, it was okay. I haven't been listening to that voice. That voice didn't really say what I wanted to hear, to tell the truth, but I knew in my heart that it was the truth, because your intuitive voice will always speak in the truth, and your heart will always know. So that was a big awakening for me. So I started to listen to it. And then the doubt creeps in, that left side of the brain. So for me, I had to go through a long journey, and this took me a few years, to be honest, of listening to the voice and then deciding, well, am I going to follow it or not? This voice, my heart kind of feels like it's true, but logically I should go that way. So I went through a lot of practice with going the logical way. Yeah, exactly, Carmen. Exactly. I would go the logical way and things would not work out. And then, okay, that bombed that time. So this next time it happens, I'm going to follow the intuitive voice and notice what happens. So I had to do that a lot for this doubtful mind to finally go, okay, the intuitive voice now I know works out for me. And like Carmen said earlier, Carmen, it's so true that sometimes it doesn't feel good at first until a situation eventually comes to a resolution or solutions. Then you see the point of that journey or that whatever was going on when you were following the intuitive voice. And sometimes that journey has its own unfoldment, as you might say. So I learned to trust it bit by bit by bit through actual experience, going, no, I'm going to follow the logical. And yeah, okay, I got kicked last time, so let's follow the intuitive and see what happens. So that step was big and it took time for me. And now for me, it's that dance between, okay, intuitive voice is saying this, logical voice is saying this. How do I get them to do this instead of this? Is my main question. So they work together. Now, am I successful at this 100% of the time? No way. That too is a journey. However, it is such an incredibly valuable journey in figuring all that out. Carmen, I would love to hear your experience with learning because our intuitive voices, they seem to complement each other, however, they're different.
Yeah, certainly. And we get, like, when we're working together with animals on our monthly positively pets, as I'm working away, you get a different message. And then when I look, I go, oh, yes, I see that. And I wouldn't have heard it on my own. So that's the value of even gathering in tribe, where one is can shift 1,000, two can shift 10,000, and onward. And it's not hard. And that's one thing I wanted to share as well with our audience is it's not hard. It's if it feels hard, that might not be the way. If it feels easier, if it lights you up, oh, I really want to do that, but I don't have enough money, or uh, I don't like the people that are going, or whatever your conversation with yourself is at that time. I really want to do that. I encourage people to start following. I really want to do that.
That is such an important point, Carmen, because I've experienced that so many times. And when I felt that there were things in the way that weren't helping me move forward to what I really wanted to do, when I did it anyway, it always worked out.
Yeah. Yes, fantastic point. And so some of my brief story, without going on for an hour and a half, is as a kid, I had an imaginary friend named Charlie. And my sister saw him. I didn't, but my sister saw and felt him. So we would play in this grove of trees, and he would be around when things happened, and I'd talk to him sometimes, even though I couldn't see him. And then as I got older, I forgot. I forgot about him. Well, it turns out he's one of my spirit guides now. I have called him a different name, Martin, but he is so valuable in my healing circles, in my work with you, as you've experienced as well, in my own personal self growth. And when we stop growing, what else is there to live for? So I'm always striving for, okay, what's this new information? And so I resisted from about age 9 or 8 my inner voice or my intuition, my guides. And it took me a while, till I was in my early 40s as well, to start hearing again the wisdoms that could help me thrive, not just financially being climbing through the corporate ladder or what have you, just abundant joy, abundant. And when you bring in abundance and abundant joy, it flows through the rest of your whole life, and just what you need suddenly shows up, or that's how my experience is. And I invite people to, instead of looking for the next thing that they want, appreciating what they have. Oh, I have a beautiful home. I have a car. I have clothes to wear. Yay! There can be simple things to, and maybe you want to be naked, so go to the nudist colony, but that's not my point of view. So I would be choosing a different path. But that has validity too, and less judgment on others. Oh, Sharon, you're doing that wrong. Sharon's doing it a different way than I would, and it still has validity and it works for her. For our individual, our biologically diverse fields of consciousness, we need a variety. We need that spice of interaction, of questioning, and different points of view, as we've already said, bring in different wisdoms. So I guess that's my brief thought of how once I started taking it on, now I'm just wildly trustful daily, usually. Just go, oh, well, that feels good. Okay, well, that doesn't, all right, go with it. And so you just move forward, as you've said, move forward, and it doesn't always work out the way I think it should work out, the way my logical mind has programmed me to be in this zone, in this certain zone. And all of a sudden you're on the end of the tree limb going, is this going to break? Am I going to die? Am I going to fall to the ground? And it turns out, even when you're in that shifty, because change is always uncomfortable, or it feels uncomfortable. Change, shifting, movement is uncomfortable. And that's how we've stayed rooted in this logical sort of mindset. It's safe.
Yeah, such a good point, Carmen. And one of the things I found was sitting out on the edge of that branch when it feels like it's going to break. That's the growth zone, isn't it? That's where you get those insights. Oh, I never thought of that before. Or you ask sometimes when I have to write a blog and I sit at the computer and I'm staring at a blank word sheet, a blank word file, thinking, that's not coming. So I go do something else, or I go to bed if it's at night, and then ask for guidance. The last thing I do before I go to sleep is ask for guidance for what people need to hear this week. And when I wake up in the morning, I open my Word file and it's like it all flows. And I'm so grateful. And that sometimes when you actually ask for that right side of the brain to flow its inspiration in, then the left side can go, oh, that makes sense. Oh, that makes sense. Oh, that makes sense. Well, let's change this sentence. Well, okay. And they start working together. I found for me, for some of the day-to-day quote things that I do, that I have found really challenging in the past, when I do request that intuitive voice to step in and support what it is I need to create, then it's fascinating how that shows up.
And for me, when I wake up, I sing. And
Ah.
I sing something like, well, one that I choose is I start my day with joy. I start my day with joy. I start my day with joy. Peaceful and amazing joy. And it goes on. And another, there's several that I use. That one was this morning, so that's on the top of my mind. And it shifts everything. Yesterday I was a bit gloomy for me. And I've had some challenges lately in life, further than the health challenges that we're going through. And so it's been a bit gloomy for me. And that was a very uncomfortable place for me to be. Because I have stated my intention for my life is be in joy and spread the joy and love every point of view, even the points of view that I don't concur with are valid. Everyone's point of view is valid.
And it's such a good point, Carmen. And I love your joy song. That's one of the things that when I'm finding if I'm stuck in the left side of the brain and I'm looking for inspiration, then I just stop everything and I'll sing. Or for me, I love the mantra and the singing that way, and so I'll sing a mantra for a little bit. To get out of the left side, to allow the right side a little more space so that it can bring in that inspiration and the heart. Yep, yep, absolutely, yeah.
It's, it's amazing. It's amazing what we can do with love. And that's been kind of overlooked for a while. And it's people like you and myself and many of my friends and my family are standing in more of a loving place and accepting of everyone on the circle has a point of view.
I've heard so many people use the analogy of a puzzle, and that every single one of us has a piece of the puzzle that all fits together, and that it's not complete unless every single one of us puts our piece of the puzzle in there.
Oh, I love
Isn't
that.
that beautiful? And
I
another
love
one,
that.
it's like a quilt. That's all, the whole human family, but it's a puzzle of the whole human family, and every single person has an essential piece for that.
Well, I
Yeah.
couldn't agree more. And that's just the beauty of working with someone else is you can get a new little perspective, and that puzzle perspective will help me go into a different um, thought pattern at times.
And it goes very much along what you're saying, and in looking at every point of view with love, very much so.
Yeah.
hmm And there's an exercise that I've shared with people, Carmen, in the past, that if you're not used to listening to the intuitive voice, or if you need to shift out of if you've been in the left brain for a while and need to shift out of it to connect again with that intuitive side. We can never lose it. It's part of our makeup up here. We can never lose it. And we just ignore it. So, this is one way that you can open the door to listening to that inside voice, that soft, quiet, intuitive voice. So, I'd like to take a few moments here to share that with you and to allow you to plant this one in your toolkit, as far as, oh yeah, I can use this to go and listen to that intuitive voice. So it has 5 different steps, And the first step is to just sit quietly, be comfortable, wiggle a little bit, and then bring your awareness to your breath. Just noticing as you breathe in, and then noticing as you breathe out. You can breathe in through the nose and out through the nose, or in and out through the mouth. It doesn't matter. We're just noticing. So you're noticing how it feels as the body expands with the breath, and then noticing how it feels as the body contracts with the out breath. Noticing how it feels coming in through the nostrils, if it feels cool or warm, or just you're noticing the flow of air. Now that you have your awareness focused on the breath, now the next step is to begin to notice where the breath pauses, where it begins to change direction. So you breathe in, and then you breathe out. There's a turning point, isn't there? So now bring your awareness to those turning points where it pauses for a moment at the end of the in-breath before you begin the out-breath. Noticing the pause. And you'll also notice as you bring your awareness to those pauses, allow the pauses to grow longer if you haven't done that already. You can count to 2 or 3 or 4, allowing the breath to flow naturally and easily. And as you continue your awareness of those longer pauses now, the next time you get to a pause, ask a question like, what is my message for this moment? As you ask the question, then in each pause, just listen. Okay, now return your breathing to normal. I got an answer right away as soon as I asked that, at least with this question. You can imagine any question you can ask at this point. To me, what is my message for today? It was peace. I got it twice. On my in-breath, what is my message for today? I heard peace right away. And then out-breath, I was quiet. And then I heard peace again. So I think I needed to hear it at least twice. And then I didn't have another question. And usually the answer comes as the first thing that pops into your mind. If you have your mind quiet when you're focusing on your breath, your mind is quieted down. So that allows that intuitive voice space to be heard. And sometimes it's a very short message. Usually the intuitive voice is pretty short, Carmen. How did you find that experience?
Well, mine on the in breath was joy, and on the out breath was joy. And part of my intention today was joy. And I feel like it's just reinforcing what I am doing, encouraging, so to speak, encouraging me to continue with that joyful feeling that, oh, I love my couch. You know, uh, oh, my plants are so lovely. The sunshine here today in Alberta is beaming down on us, and I plan to go for a walk. I can hardly wait to walk among the crispy leaves and the bare trees just settling down in for the winter, and hear the birds that are around. There's jays and crows and magpies. We may not enjoy those as much as songbirds' song, and they might still have a message for us. We can continue our breathing, and I love that exercise. Thank you so much, Sharon, for sharing that.
Thank you, Carmen. And how fascinating and how fun. You got a return of your intention for the day, which is joy. And for those listening, we would love to hear, and for those listening to the replay, we would love to hear in the comments what your message was, if you would like to share it. This is something that's so simple. You can do it at any time. It's just while your kettle is boiling to make a cup of tea, while you just take a moment to get a break if you're at work and you have a moment to get a break to just notice your breathing. What's my message for today? Or maybe a different question that what is my next step is another question that is a question I love to ask. What is my next step? Because of the limited human brain, it's limited and it's unlimited in so many ways. However, we don't have the soul's entire picture. And sometimes that annoys me like crazy because I like to have the whole map, the whole picture, and that ain't going to happen. So I've learned that it's most practical for me to just say, okay, Sharon, it's okay that you don't have the whole picture. That's okay. Trust the journey. What is my next step? And then I listen and listen and listen. And it comes in the, speaking of listening, Carmen, can you share the ways you experience listening? And you already in a way explained how you listen to nature. Maybe elaborate more on that, or share how you receive intuitive messages.
It's That's a very big question, Sharon.
I
Uh,
know.
I used to think I was just talking to myself. I'd walk around the house discussing my frustrations or my joys or my what was really going right or who I was in love with or those types of things. And I would hear responses, and I was like, no, I don't like that answer. So that was part of my growth into listening. And before we want what we want, physically, we're physical presence here, and our we want to be loved, we want to be liked, and that is something that drives us. We don't want to be separated from other people because we're weird or odd, or we don't agree, or we're running the other way. So the lemmings all running towards the cliff, and you're the one lemming running away. You look kind of crazy until they're all dead at the bottom of the cliff, kind of thing. Like, that's kind of harsh, but that's sort of the easy analogy that I can think of right now, that we really want to have that love. So I hear like almost like my own voice, and it doesn't have the same opinions as me. So I recognize that it's, oh, okay, well, there's a different conversation going on here. It's actually a conversation. Another way I hear from animals, as you're aware, is they send me pictures. So I see this, or I see them limping, or I see they're dragging their hip, or um, and if I look, I've seen actually people um, when I was driving through downtown Calgary one day. I looked over when I was stopped at a red light. I looked over at the pedestrians for some reason, and I saw a man, and he looked like he had been burned by um, radiation. And I went, ooh. So I looked away. I didn't want to stare at him. And I looked back and he was totally normal. And if I wouldn't have been in traffic, I may have approached that man and said, it may be in your best interest to start wearing sunscreen. He was a very fair skinned redhead person. And so visually, I see things. I don't see auras, which I've been, oh, I wish I could see auras at times. And I recognize my gifts are different than that. Or maybe it's a skill that I haven't gleaned yet. But it's almost like I see a picture for a moment. I've done dogs too. I looked over it looked like a young puppy prancing beside his owner. And then I looked back and his front leg was definitely weak. I don't know how to explain it, but it was just weak. And I'm like, oh. And I approached the owner because I was on a dog walk as well. And the two dogs got along just fine. So it was nice to just talk. And I said, if I gave my business card and I said, I feel there's a weakness in this front right leg of this dog. And they couldn't hear me at that time. A year later, they got a hold of me and said, how did you know? The and I said, well, I don't know how I know. I just know. And would you like to work together? Yes. And so I did a few sessions with that dog, and now it was 2.5 years old, and it strengthened the leg enough that it didn't have to go for ligament replacement. I believe they were going to do a ligament replacement on the front leg, which is very unusual for
Mm-hmm.
dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a very curious seeing. So I take it in, and I feel like the more I flex those muscles of listening and get into that, like your breathing, this breathing exercise we did helps put us into that listening mode, that meditative state. So whether you meditate by chanting, meditate by singing a song, meditate by sitting still and I don't do that well. And or a walking meditation, walking through the nature.
All of
Um,
those. Yeah.
yeah, any of those meditations, if you can get your mind to stop a little bit, connect with the heart. I don't know why my heart's on the right side. Oh no, that's my left side. It's more in the middle, I guess. Um, if you can stop and drop into the heart, as you pointed to, connecting mind and heart, and let the heart lead. I feel like you just have a better avenue to finding your true self.
This is such an important point, Carmen, and I think it almost starts to answer a question that just came up on the Enlightened Living page, and I love that you're sharing so many different ways, and I know I get that. How did you know a lot too? When I'm working with someone in particular, I'm more open to listening, and so I find that insights come into my awareness when I'm working with a client with the bowl on their abdomen, for example, and then as I move the bowl around a little bit, we'll ask a question like, "Have you had trouble with your right hip lately?" How did you know? So those kinds of things are the way it shows up for me too. And the question from Caprice is, how do the two of you distinguish between the voice of intuition and fear? The voice of fear is the voice of the emotional brain and the left side of the brain. It's connected in a way to the voice of the ego and the voice of the personality. It's also connected to logic. If you're a teacher giving a lecture, that's the left side of the brain working logically. However, when we get the emotions in there, the left side of the brain takes over with the diatribe of inner chatter that we're all familiar with. And then the voice of intuition, as Carmen was just saying, is saying, okay, what I want to do is bring my awareness right down into the heart. So Carmen, please elaborate on that, because it's exactly for me a big part of the answer. Whenever I notice the voice of fear happening, the heart always has the answer to that for me.
Well, one way that I do it is placing my hand on my heart, bringing awareness to the heart chakra, to even the physical heart itself, and just saying, thank you. Thank you for this challenge. Thank you for this growth opportunity. Thank you for this grief. Where can it take me? Thank you for this wonderful ice cream. And then I hum. So I'm bringing in an aspect of the sound wellness science that we teach, and I'm recognizing the heart's value and my gratefulness for being alive. Thank you for this breath. Thank you for these doctors that are looking after me. Thank you for my family and the opportunity to heal the relationships within the family. So those types of exercises or ways to move through challenging times are my strongest points.
I could feel the shift right away, Carmen. As soon as you started, thank you for this challenge. Thank you. It brought me right into the heart. Right into the heart. And I love, because I don't always think of actually placing the hand on the chakra or over the physical heart. This time my hand went to the physical heart, and with all the thank yous, and it shifts it completely. And remember, what we were talking about, gratitude-a-thon. And
Yeah.
it's kind of what you were getting into, that if you're having trouble thinking of something you're grateful for, and it's kind of a gratitude-a-thon where you look around you and everything around you is something to be grateful for, with your hand on your heart, to speak it. Even if it takes 5 or 10 minutes to continue to speak it, you stubbornly, especially if the fear is stubborn, the heart is stronger than the fear. It's always stronger than the fear. Always. We just have to make the effort to connect with the heart. It will always be stronger than the fear. That had to be said 3 times. So let's maybe take turns with some of the gratitude. You've already done some gratitude-a-thon, Carmen, and simple things like, I am so grateful for this computer. I am so grateful for the electricity that runs this computer. I'm so grateful for the lights. I'm so grateful for the sun. I'm so grateful for one of my favorite pictures. I'm so grateful for my friends. I'm so grateful for my eyes. I'm so grateful for my hair. I'm so grateful for my voice. I'm so great. Can you see how you don't stop? You take a quick breath and you keep going. Anything that you have in your, I'm so grateful. I have my desk full of stuff. I can say, I'm so grateful for this mess. I'm so grateful for this beautiful crystal. I'm so grateful. And it's on nonstop. You can go on and on and on and on, and it will shift you. And I love the piece about putting the hand on the heart, because for me, that's a piece that I hadn't added, Carmen. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. My sister actually imparted that to me, and I'm grateful to her for her point of view to bring in extra, extra help, extra ways to connect. For when you're in those low places, and many highly sensitive people can really go low, and we talked about it on one of our previous shows, we can gather in from others that which is not ours. So all of a sudden we're tra la la, I'm so grateful. And then you get hit with angry or sad or grieved or um, frustrated. And when you see that abrupt change, you could just do that little trick, put your hand on your heart and say, thank you. Thank you for this lesson. And I'm not taking this on. This is not mine. And I'm going to release it. Thank you. In love and light. It seems pretty easy to me to do. And if we haven't built that muscle, it would be more challenging.
I agree, Carmen, because it's not something we think about. The brain so easily tends to get in that downward spiral. Once the amygdala is activated, then it can be an ongoing spiral. And really, and even heart math scientists, heartmath.com is a wonderful resource also for helping you get into the heart. And they say the only thing that can that can stop the fear is the heart, because the heart is stronger than the brain. The heart is stronger than the mind, and the fear and the emotional part of that. The heart will always bring you back to center and your intuitive voice. That probably one of the most important messages for today, I think.
Yeah, my belief is that we are meant to live through our hearts. We are meant to even communicate psychically, where without words, just with our love and light. And we've forgotten.
That's a whole other show, Carmen. We have about 7 minutes remaining before the hour, and are there any other things you wanted to share about trusting the intuitive voice or how it speaks?
Well, as some highly intuitive people, highly sensitive people, as you have imparted to me, get ill. Like you actually get physical pain, or physical nausea, or an extreme spike headache. And I've had that on occasion. That's not the main way that I receive. But when it was overwhelming, when everybody in my neighborhood, for example, was worried about the explosion, I had an explosion in my head, basically. And so, not, it didn't cause me any harm. But if we can recognize that it's not always, we are picking up, we are receivers, as you pointed out, receivers. And we're meant to receive and share and help each other cope in this life. And when we overshare, there's people that overshare their grief, their anger, their frustration. Then the highly sensitive of us grab that because we want to help them. We do. We naturally flow towards helping our fellow man, even when it doesn't seem like that. That's how I feel like we live unconsciously.
Good point, Carmen. And I find that as a physical empath, the experiencing that pain and from someone else. It took me a long time to figure out that what I was experiencing belonged to somebody else. No, it wasn't even mine. So, and actually, this is a really great point for maybe the next month's show is how do we know if we have taken on something from someone else? Thank you for writing this down. I just see you writing. How do we know if we've taken on something from someone else or someplace else? And how do we release that? I think this would be an important part. And today, listening to the voice, but part of everything for empaths is getting back into the heart, and that living in the heart, from the heart, allowing the brain to work with the heart, not over the heart. The heart is, remember, is running the show. And when the heart's not allowed to speak, it's like, okay, I'm running the show anyway. You're going to get hit with something. And it'll happen. We've all experienced that. Or the intuitive voice will yell at us. So I think this would be a great topic for next time.
I agree. Great point. And also know that if you don't listen, or if you can't hear, there will be a way that either slows you down or stops you. And there is no choice. Either you die or you hear. And so to speak, it's not necessarily your physical death, but you could just wither away into misery, basically.
Yeah. Totally, Carmen. And I know I have, when I had an important decision I had to make quite a few years ago, and when Ed and I were on vacation, I'd been avoiding making that decision. And when Ed and I went on vacation, I fell down the stairs and badly. I didn't break my ankle, although I broke two ligaments that hold my ankle together. It was a very bad sprain. I spent months with my foot on ice and not able to walk normally. Months. And the ankles and the feet are about, what decisions are you not making? So I was forced to have my foot up on the couch. I got caught up in all my craft projects, but also at the same time I was thinking, okay, Sharon, you got to make a decision. And so these kinds of messages from that appear in your life, that are messages that something is being avoided. And so there's just a comment here that, and Caprice, I really hope you come next month, second Wednesday of the month, same time, same place. She says that's really important. How do we know that we have taken on that from others, and how do we know that we are in our heart and not in our egos? Sometimes the ego sounds like the heart, at least for me, and that's a good point. So thank you for bringing that up, Caprice. We'll talk about that next show. I know we covered some of that today, but would like some deeper discussion. You bet.
I thank you so much, Caprice, for coming into our conversation. It's so valuable just to have that extra voice.
Totally. Hmm. Carmen, it feels like it would be great to finish with three ohms again with beautiful Mashindra.
Thank you for the invitation, and I would love to do that. I want to encourage everyone to breathe into their feet right now. And so we close the sacred space and our connection together with you and you, Sharon. Thank you so much for joining us. We just appreciate being able to spread the word, our words, and stand in the possibility that they help someone move through.
Thanks, Carmen. And we'll see you again next month, everyone.